Okay, let's jump right into this. Today, we're doing something a little bit different, and honestly, something that is going to truly reward those of you who love to focus on the details. We are going to forensically unpack a remarkably dense 10-word source artifact. In a world where we are constantly bombarded by massive walls of text and hours of overwhelming content, it's so incredibly easy to just skim past the surface. But right now, we're going to slow down. We're looking at a single, incredibly brief source text, and we're applying a rigorous analytical framework to it. We're going to see how paying attention to structure and intent can reveal an absolute blueprint from just a handful of syllables. And here is our entire foundation for today: Advanced Astrology Zodiac Sign Deep Dive for Sign of Scorpio. That's it. That is the entirety of our source material. Now, on its face, sure, it kind of looks like a casual search query, but every single word here is actually pulling a massive amount of weight. Over the course of this explainer, we are going to unpack exactly how this one sentence builds its demands, sets its parameters, and ultimately locks right onto its target. So we start at the very beginning with advanced. This is a completely crucial modifier that instantly sets an incredibly high bar for whatever is coming next. The author didn't just ask for a basic astrology breakdown. No, they placed a strict gatekeeper at the very front of the sentence. By demanding something advanced, the text establishes a rigorous, elevated methodological framework before we even know what the subject matter actually is. It's basically telling us that standard inquiries simply won't cut it. You know, whenever an author explicitly states a modifier like advanced, they are implicitly rejecting its opposite. By demanding advanced astrology, we actually have to actively push away the implicit standard astrology. We're talking about ditching the daily newspaper horoscopes or those superficial personality quizzes. This directive insists that we transcend the basics. It requires a level of sophisticated analysis that goes way, way beyond the norm. And it makes this requirement known right out of the gate at word number 1. These first two words combine to create a highly specialized methodology. First, you've got the expectation, which is advanced. Then you have the overarching field of study, astrology. Binding these two concepts together defines the exact caliber of the lens we're using. It makes it a rigid, high-level mandate. It's a foundational pairing that guarantees we read the rest of this sentence not just as some casual suggestion, but as a deeply deliberate inquiry. Moving a bit further down the sentence, the text immediately narrows the massive, sprawling field of advanced astrology into a highly specific categorical parameter. I mean, astrology, especially advanced astrology, is an incredibly vast field, right? You've got birth charts, planetary transits, lunar nodes, houses, complex mathematical alignments. It's a lot. If the prompt just stopped at advanced astrology, the scope would be impossibly wide. But it doesn't stop there. It immediately reins in that scope by dropping the phrase zodiac sign. That phrase acts like a funnel, forcing that broad field through a very specific categorical filter. Within the context of this specific directive, the zodiac sign becomes the absolute foundational unit of measurement. It's our chosen arena. The author is explicitly telling us, hey, ignore all those extraneous variables. We need to focus our lens exclusively on the concept of the sign itself. Now, here's where things get really crucial, with the introduction of the phrase deep dive. This phrase dictates the intense physical and intellectual action that's required of us. Think about it. We know the level of expertise required is advanced. We know the conceptual boundary is the zodiac sign. Now, the text is dictating the action. Deep dive isn't just some passive noun phrase. It is an active, aggressive command. It requires effort, commitment, and absolutely zero superficiality. It tells us exactly how we are supposed to interact with the parameters we just established. And a deep dive doesn't just happen all at once, right? It's a progression. Step 1 is your surface level entry. You acknowledge the basics before you move past them. Step 2 is total immersion, where you sink way past the obvious data. And finally, step 3 is advanced synthesis. That is where the real value is extracted from the depths. This structural progression is exactly what's demanded by those two simple words. The phrase itself actually carries this fascinating dual nature. Deep carries the implication of submersion, right? Existing far, far below the surface. Meanwhile, dive is an active, intentional plunge. You literally have to choose to dive. When you combine them, this text is insisting upon an intense, deliberate intellectual exertion from absolutely anyone undertaking this task. So, with all of these intense methodological parameters firmly established, it begs the ultimate question: what exactly are we targeting here? We have meticulously constructed this highly advanced, deeply immersive analytical framework. We've bounded it by the concept of the zodiac. We are fully suited up and ready for the deep dive. But what is the object resting at the bottom of the ocean that we are actually trying to retrieve? The suspense built into the structure of this sentence is just remarkably effective. Notice the repetitive insistence of the word sign here. It's acting as a laser-focused targeting mechanism, locking right onto its final destination. We already encountered the word sign a second ago in the phrase zodiac sign, but the author consciously chooses to repeat it here, for sign of. In a text this brief, repetition is literally never an accident. It's pure emphasis. It acts as a homing beacon. It narrows the focus even further, stripping away any lingering ambiguity and completely preparing us for the exact specific entity that is about to be named. Just before we reveal that target, take a look at this massive buildup of constraints. The methodology has to be advanced. The action has to be an active deep dive, and the focus must rigidly target a specific sign. This sequence is acting as a massive funnel, concentrating all of our analytical energy into a single pinpoint location. It essentially guarantees that the final word of this sentence carries the entire weight of everything that preceded it. And here is our climax. Scorpio. It completely monopolizes the end of the sentence and serves as the absolute focal point of this intense inquiry. This is it. This is the target that demanded the advanced methodology in the first place. This is the exact entity that required the active deep dive. The entire architecture of the preceding 9 words exists for one reason and one reason only: to frame, highlight, and investigate this one specific subject. It is just a brilliant release of all that structural tension the sentence was meticulously building. And you know, the author's choice to fully capitalize this final word, definitely not an accident. A lowercase Scorpio simply states a subject, but a fully capitalized Scorpio, that commands attention. It completely dominates the visual landscape of the sentence, elevating the subject to a point of critical, almost urgent importance. It isn't merely a sign being studied. It is a subject being aggressively emphasized by the author's deliberate keystrokes. I absolutely love this visual because, quite literally, 100% of the focus of this advanced, methodical deep dive is entirely consumed by this single target. There is absolutely no nuance in the subject selection here. There's no tiny slice of the pie left over for some comparative analysis with another sign. The directive does not want a broad overview of multiple subjects. The entire weight of the structural inquiry, 100% of the analytical pie chart, belongs absolutely and exclusively to Scorpio. It is a completely unified, singular mission. Let's just take a quick second to review the metrics of our source text, because it's fascinating how efficient language can actually be. Within a tiny footprint of just 10 words, we have one distinct action phrase dictating effort and exactly one ultimate target. Literally not a single word is wasted. Every single syllable drives you toward that final capitalized conclusion. You can actually reconstruct the narrative arc of this single sentence as a thrilling timeline of events leading directly to the ultimate conclusion. It's almost like a rocket launch sequence. T-3, the advanced methodology is firmly established at the very start. T-2, the deep dive action is initiated, dictating the sheer intensity of the approach. And T-1, the parameters narrow and the target is locked definitively onto Scorpio. This 10-word sentence literally reads with the pacing and structured momentum of a countdown. Now, why does all of this matter to you as a focused learner? It matters because active reading can extract immense, highly structured meaning from exactly 10 words. You don't always need a massive 100-page textbook to find complex architecture and clear intent. When you really learn to read actively, when you start analyzing the modifiers, charting the constraints, and paying close attention to things like the exact visual capitalization of a target, you realize that densely packed information is all around us. Just by dissecting these 10 words, we've uncovered a complete, highly rigorous operational directive. We've thoroughly unpacked the parameters, but the true mystery honestly still remains. What actually necessitates such an extreme investigation in the first place? We have completely deconstructed the how and the what of this source text. We've seen the demand for advanced, deep-diving scrutiny. But if this highly intense, fully capitalized language is merely the framework for the investigation, what on earth is waiting to be found at the bottom of that dive? What secrets does Scorpio actually hold that requires such rigorous, uncompromising attention? Well, that is the fascinating question this structural framework leaves us with. And perhaps a dive will have to take another time. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay curious and always remember to look closely at the structure of what you're reading.